I'm Roby Price, and welcome to my workshop.
I'm just back from the Jamestown Mill, and I've got some plank with an interesting profile. It's the same interesting profile that's in my house, and you'll see why that's important. We have a room upstairs that is unfinished and it needs some attention, and ordinarily that would take second place to my shop. But we've got new windows coming, and that's accelerating this. So let's get these planks out of the back, let's get them prepped, and let's get started on some window casings. I'll see you inside.
Improvements to the homestead. Window casings, Part 1. Welcome to the workshop, and it's not much of a workshop. All the tools are in the back room, and I don't have much up here except my table saw and its lonely little electrical connection. And I do have my cross-cutting saw up here as well. The reason that all the tools are out of here is we're getting an epoxy floor. So that's going to be coming up here in a couple of weeks. There are some other things that have changed, and one of which is I have air conditioning. The unit has been refurbished, and I tell you what, on an August day, that's plenty nice. But let's talk about what we've got here in front of us. I have a number of boards here that have the same profile that the boards that are in my house. Now, the house is semi-historic. It is not quite 100 years old, but will be in another seven years. And we are trying to match the profile in the various rooms which we're refurbishing. Now, there's a new room upstairs that has 3 windows that are going to be installed. And those windows have to have their casements installed prior to the windows being installed. And I can't build the casement, especially out of unpainted wood, without having the walls in place, because the casements will come out to the walls and then the framing will go around them. So I have to get walls up. It's just as simple as that. So we have to put this material in place in the upstairs room, and from there we can build our casements, and from then we can put in our windows. And that contractor is scheduled to come in a number of weeks, so we need to be ready for him. And that's what's driving this project. Ordinarily, I might be doing something more related to getting this shop ready for production. But right now, this is tops on the list. I think if we go upstairs to that room up there I'm talking about, you'll see a little bit more about what we need to do. When Valerie and I were looking up here in Tennessee for property, we want to get out of Houston, not because we don't like Houston, but it was just getting a little too warm. And we have some family up here and friends, and we thought it'd be nice for a change, especially with regards to the weather. We came to Crossville because that's where we have some family, and we started looking around at houses, and we saw a series of houses that were all roughly the same look and feel. They were a little different, but they all had the same stone exteriors, same roof pitch, same trim packages, and is very unusual because it was obvious the houses were old. Well, as we came to research this a little bit, we find out that these are homestead houses, and they were built as part of Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal program. This was something that they did to bring people up, and this was a community of 250 some odd families that settled in
the Cumberland area, and they built the community. They started by building a barn, and they would stay in the barn for a period of time, and then they would start to build their house. And various members of the community would have different functions. One would be a mason, one would be a millwright, one would do metal work, and all this with the help of the government. This was the original Habitat for Humanity program. So when we look at this house, we see the old part of the house, and that's the two windows and the porch and kind of this side of it. That was only about 1,200 square feet. The owner, previous owner, added on another section over here, which was another 1,200 square feet. That brings us to 2,400 square feet, which is really very comfortable. But there were a number of things that he didn't do. He didn't finish the room upstairs, even though he got the look and feel of the house right, down to the roof pitch, the dormers, and the stone. He didn't finish the interior. So one of the things that we're doing now is we're adding new windows. And as part of the new windows, we've got to change out some of the casings, and we've got to revamp that room upstairs, which was never finished. I have to put in window casings up there too. And I want to keep the various look and feel of the house while we do that. And I guess the only way to really show you that is to take you inside and show you the look and feel that we're looking for. So come on inside and we'll take a look, and then you'll know what I'm trying to do.
We're in one of the upstairs bedrooms, and this is the example of what we want to duplicate. You can see that the walls all have the same profile of the planks that I purchased. And these window casements are what we want to put in, and these are simple. Once the walls are in place, I can size the width of these planks and put them in place. And the same is true with the sill on the bottom. The trim is a bonus. We don't need that to install the windows because these windows are coming in and they will seal around these casements, and we get a little more R factor out of that. But before we put these walls in, we need to consider a few details. First of all, in the ceilings and in the floors, there's always a corner block. They put that corner block in first, and the corner block is not quite square. You've got a bevel right here that transitions between the wall and the ceiling. We will do the same in the new room. Additionally, these planks are multi-width. Now we've got a thin one here. That's a good 8-inch board right there. This is a 6, and we have a 4 over there. We will cut some of these to different widths on the table saw. We can do this, but right now I cannot duplicate that bead. So we're not going to have any of these really wide boards. So the first thing we'll do when we get into the new room is start to put down the corner blocks on bottom and on top. Then we will size the boards to length to start putting them in place. Now, notice the color, the hue of the wood. We're not going to get there on this pass. What we will do is we'll get the boards in place, do a little sanding, get them in place. I will want to finish out the complete wall before we do this, and we're probably going to spend some time in the shop working on a formula, and that's important because right now we haven't decided if we're doing accent walls or if we're doing the full room. All that is still a little bit up in the air. So let's go into the new room. Now that we see what we have, what we want, let's go see what we have to work with. You might be wondering why we have a door there. If you've done any photography, you know that the light whistling through this window will totally defeat everything else. And I don't have a lot of light up here. This is a totally unfinished room, and it really looks unfinished. But one thing I can say is I'm not tucked up under an eave in here, so we're really looking forward to getting this space finished. This is the window that I have to frame out, and I'll get some better pictures for you without the door. This is the siding that is coming off, and we're going to have just a lot of fun taking it off. This room was framed out starting from this direction going around, and you can tell because of the overlaps in the siding. But we are just going to focus on this wall. We'll take everything off of it, but we will probably only put planking here. It kind of depends on how fast it goes. So we'll take this off, and then as I said before, the first thing we'll do is work on the corner blocks right here and the corners up on the ceiling so that our planks have something to butt into. Another thing that you're going to notice when we take this down, This is sheet stock. It was always, the framing was designed for sheet stock. Framing is designed for sheet rock wall, sheet rock. And the studs are vertical. When we go back with our tongue and groove planks that are vertical, there's going to be nothing to nail the middle ones to. So we're going to end up putting braces inside the studs. So it's more than just putting the corner blocks in and going after it. We're going to have to end up doing some more framing on this too. So let's get started. And I've got a flat bar and a hammer, and we'll just get after it.
It was a slow start, but the demo actually went pretty quickly. It was all put in with finished nails, and sometimes you just have to coax it a little bit. For the most part, I used the flat bar to start. I didn't really have to use it that much thereafter. Once I had a good start, a lot of times it was just a simple matter of pulling it out by hand. I would point out that once you get it out, you want to take all the nails, all of them out from everywhere. If you've ever stepped on one of these things inadvertently, it is a new kind of pain. I'm not going to be able to transport all my tools up to this room. I just have to do some things in the shop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a story stick. Now I've made a couple of ticks on the wall there so I can keep my story stick level. And I will put it up against the wall, and everywhere there's a stud I'll make a mark. So when I'm down in the shop, I will know the distance from the wall to every stud, and I can make cuts and transitions where needed. I'm starting to work on the lower corner blocks, and like everything else, it's made out of pine. So 2x4 performs a pretty good function here. I really need a good square edge or a flat edge on one side, and that's where a 2x4 falls short. So I'll trim up an edge here and get it flat. I'm making the corner blocks, and they're about 7/8 wide, and I'm making the cut on the outside of the plank and not the inside of the plank. In other words, I'm not 7/8 between the fence and the blade. I'm 7/8 from the outside of the board to the cut. And the reason for that is 7/8 is a little tight to be working with on a 2x4 or a board of this length, and I don't really trust the 2x4 that much. So I will make this cut, and then I will make the next cut the same way, leaving myself as much room between the blade and the fence as I can.
Well, I'm just back from my table saw, and I've made two corner blocks out of an 8-foot 2x4. We've got a 9-foot wall, so we're going to have to splice it, and that's not a problem. Just go ahead and do that. It's where we splice it that's important. We won't just pick a place. We'll want to pick a place that's pretty stout. And what I want to do is splice it right at the jack stud at the window. So taking my story stick right here, and you saw me messing with this, and this is quite the thick story stick. So what I've done is I've got the wall right here, and according to the story stick right about here, the window sits. So I've made my marks like this, and if I take this particular, and I can make the mark right here, and this is going to be in the center of the jack stud. Now, I also took the same story stick and this wall right here as against the other side. Now this is where the window starts right here, but this is where we want the splice to be. So I've also taken and I've made a center spot here in the center of that jack stud. So what we will do is take this and I'll line this up with the end and then transfer the mark over here. So then all we really need to do at this point is to take these two and line up the marks, and this is going to be our block. We will cut it right here and we'll join these two up and it'll span the full room. That gets these. Now, we also need some nailers in the middle. We need some nailers on the bottom at the base plate, because this is just going to come up to the top of the base plate. But we also need something behind it to nail to. In additionally, we need something at 4 feet. So the story stick is going to tell me how wide a space I have between the gaps. Now we'll go to the compound miter saw and start cutting out 2x4s to fit into those spaces. And once we get those cut, we'll go upstairs and install them with the finish nailer. Well, I've got a lot to do today, and I can't wait for the sun to go down, and that door is in the way to give you a little bit of a picture, but I want to give you a flavor of what we're trying to do here. Here's one of my corner blocks, and he's done pretty well. Do keep in mind that it was a 2x4, and yes, I have some markings here. We'll put those down, and when the board is finally stained and colored, no one will ever know. I've already checked the other one. The fit is good. I'm going to be using my finish nailer, and we're just going to put him in place right here. That's probably enough to do the job. Now, my intermediates are the bottom ones. These are going to be what we nail to for our wall boards, and you can't hardly see this right here, but this goes in like this. Let me move on to the other side. Now, I purposely cut these in half, and I'm going to put these right here. The reason I cut them in half is because I need to be able to use my finish nailer to nail them in, and the nail's long enough that it will go through. Now, it's critical that you are even with this stud, otherwise your planks aren't going to lay down real well for you. Okay. These I will nail in pretty well because they're going to be doing a lot of work. Now I'm going to adjust the camera, and I'm going to show you what I've got going on up here at the 4 foot mark. All right, I've got marks here at 4 feet, and that is, and this is the same block cut in half, and he's going to go right here. I don't really need a nailer right here because I'm going to have plenty to go to, but this is going to be a little problematic. There's going to be a number of them like this, where you have to get this in place, and it's a little wide on this one. Unfortunately, it's narrower on that one. The studs aren't quite straight, and that's typical. But with this one, we can make him work, and we'll just toe nail him in place. A few more and that'll be fine. It's not optimal, but again, it's what we've got. We can probably make it work all the way top to bottom. And, you know, you do with what you have sometimes when dealing with framing. Well, I'm back up from the shop, and I have my board here that's ready to go up against the casing. This will start my field going this way. My board that ends, it's over here. Now he's a little warped, so I don't know if we're going to be able to use him. He's not warped this way, he's warped this way. In other words, he won't conform to a straight stud. And that's kind of a shame. But we'll see. We may be able to use him. It kind of depends. This is tongue and groove, and you've got a little leeway with that. Now the window is open, the sun is beaming in, and I know the picture's not great. But just a few pointers. One, we need to be lined up with our jack stud, because that's where we said we would be. And we are coming in just underneath our molding. Now, just because I'm lined up with the window doesn't mean that the window is square or even level. So we will make sure we level it out. So we want to come at least to there, and then we want to make sure that we're level. But we have to come at least to the inside of this casing, and maybe a touch more. All right. So now, once we're here, it's just a matter of setting them in place. We'll put a few more in. At the end of the day, we're going to start focusing more on the bead because that's easier to handle. These two, I just wanted them to set it in place. We'll have to fill these holes, although in the original house, they didn't. So give me a chance and I'll get all these plugged in and we'll start taking a look at filling in this lower field here. Well, I'm being a little bit of a contortionist here, trying to stay out of the direct beam of the light, and the longer I wait, the more the sun goes that way and comes back at me. So I'm going to finish this up pretty quick. We're starting to put our field down here below, and one of the things that you need to remember is whenever you put a nail in a board like this, it's always easier to fill a hole on the bead than it is on the flat. We put some on the flat with this one. We didn't have a whole lot of choice. There wasn't anything to nail to. But these are a totally different animal, so we will take advantage of these plates right here as nailers. Now remember, you got to check it for level. And the lap and gap is okay. You can make some of these adjustments and nobody will be the wiser unless that happens. I don't know if you can see this. On a rare occasion, you will hit another nail behind it, and I think that's exactly what's happened here. That'll just be one more hole to fill. I guess I better get a set of pliers. The field is in and the door is up. I'm trying to at least give you an opportunity to see what's going on. The field turned out fine, and we are just a bit short of this right here, which is okay, because what I will do, I will take this board right here and I will trim back the bead. Just get rid of the bead altogether, and that should give me enough to come right about to here and be even with that. The frame itself will not come past this, so I won't have a seam underneath it. So I think I'm in good shape on this. Now you'll also notice I'm a little short on top. That's a mistake. But the framing will cover this. And even if it wouldn't traditionally, I'll make it cover it. But I think I've measured. It's a 3 1/4 inch frame, and that will cover that up. What I will do is take a piece of stock and put it across there to give me something solid to nail to. So that's something I will do. So this has got to go back down to the shop, and the bead's got to be trimmed back. I'll make a mark there, and the next time you see this, it'll be all nailed up, and we'll start working on the casing and the frame. So what I've got here, this is my sill plate, and I've got him cut. We've got this sized up just right end to end for the openings with a little bit of a tail over here. Now this tail is going to be enough to get the trim around the side and make everything look just right. And this has been trimmed out. It's pretty good. I've got a very tight fit right here, maybe 1/16 of an inch play back and forth, and all that gets covered up when I put the casings in right here. You'll never see it. But not quite level. I don't have enough depth in there, and these boards weren't tall enough to get this thing level. I didn't want them tall enough, because if they're too tall, I go like this, and then I don't have anything behind it. I would rather it be like this, because what I'm going to do, this is my skirt. My skirt's going to come in under here and give it the leverage right here to hold it in place. Now, to do that is difficult as well. You got to have about 3 hands, because if I put a level right there, it wants to fall off. As soon as I get him far enough over, he tips. So it's got to be a little bit of an angle. And that's what I want. I'm going to take my skirt, put it up underneath. This is when it helps to have 3 hands. And that is about right, because I know it's 1/8 of an inch. And I make sure that I'm in contact in the back, and my bubble level, it's just right. So I have to hold him in there
and get my gun. All right, that's 2. I'm going to check the other side, make sure we're fine over there. But with 2 nails in it, it should be good. I'll put 2 more in it, and then I'll nail this into place. Then we can get started on the casings around the window. Well, the next step in the process is to put in the top plate, because the sides butt up against it, and I want to push them in pretty tight so I get a lot of pressure down so nothing will come out later. So I've got him pushed up there. He's sized appropriately, and it's just a few trim nails and it's in place. Again, I'm pulled out all the way over here. If I push the camera too far that way, you will not see a thing. Well, now that my sill is in place and my top plate is in place, I can mark these side casings. And what I will do is I will take this and put him in place right here. Now, you probably notice I can't get to that over there. I'm going to come around over here. And make a mark up here at the top against the top plate. This has already been cut. It's square. This over here has now been marked. And what I will do is I'll take it to my compound miter saw and cut it and leave the line. I want some persuasion to push this in so that my top plate and sill are pressed down a little bit, and the squareness of this will help square those up as well. Now, the other side, I'm going to measure him too. I'm not going to cut these at the same time. I will cut them independently because one side may be longer than the other. And I would rather have these at different lengths and fit tightly than to have them the same length and have a gap on one side versus the other. So it's off to the compound miter saw. We'll make our cuts and then we'll come back up here and install these 2 boards. Back up from the shop, and I'm back upstairs in the heat. So what we're going to do is put this in place. Now it's a little long. I left the line. And on this one, I left maybe a 64th more than the line, so it's a little tight, and that's fine. When I put it in there tight, it does 2 things. One, I don't have any gaps, and that's a bonus. It also squares up the top plate and the sill, which is another thing that I want done. So it helps reinforce that squareness of the overall casing. So I've got my dead throw hammer, and we'll put him in place. I have to go to the other side. It's going to be bright, but this is the procedure that I will use to put him in place. Lean him up like this, and you can see already it's very tight. Now I know it's bright, but I'll be honest with you, I couldn't be happier. That is perfect. So the next step is to get the trim around it, and we will take our trim pieces that are downstairs and they're drying. So I will get them from the shop, bring them up, and we will measure those in place. This project is coming to a quick close. Well, I'm back up from the shop and I've got my trim piece right here. And what we'll do, we put him right here, and remember that on the sill we have our stubs that come out, and that's what this piece will sit on. Now I want a 1/4 inch reveal right here. I'm a little bit big, but we'll space him out accordingly. We will measure that when we nail it in, but more importantly is the top. So what I want to do is I want to take a good look up here, because when I cut this to its final length, I want this to be a 1/4 inch right there. So you don't have to be perfect. It's good to be very close, but that's where that is. So what I will do is I'll set him up right there next to the line, and it can be over a little bit. It's as close as you can get him. Make sure he's square, and then we transfer that mark here. Now, the eye is pretty forgiving. We're going to get very, very close on this, and we'll do the same thing on the other side so that we have a 1/4 inch reveal all the way around the opening. We'll make these 2 cuts on the side pieces first. We'll bring the top piece in that will sit on top, and we'll cut it to length even with the edges. Just like I said, I've got my member up there. I've got the 1/4 inch reveal. It's a matter of just putting a couple of nails in it to get it set. All right, now, this is the top. I've got one side that's cut a little better than that. Yeah, this is the side that I want. So I will place him on top, just like this. And we'll make 2 marks and then take him back down to the shop and cut him and put him in place. And that'll be it. Well, I'm back up from the shop, and hopefully for the last time on this little project. Let me show you what has to happen here. I've got this guy, he's going to go in place like that, and he sits up just so. Now, as you might well imagine, I've already checked him for level, and it's solid. 3 little nails in that, and he's done. So this project upstairs is wrapped up. I'll come up later tonight when the sun's gone down, and then you can see what's happened here. And I'll show you the other window as well. So let's finish this one up, and then the next part of the project, and that's for another day, is going to be to get 5 windows done downstairs, where we actually have to pull the casings down a bit. And that's so when the casement windows open, they clear the gutters outside. Anyway, I will see you tomorrow.